Welcome back. By now, regular listeners know that the growing list of countries that have announced a phase out of sales of either vehicles powered by gasoline or diesel fuel or the very fuel themselves. Along these same lines are a growing number of cities around the world who are saying no to the motor vehicle, regardless of how it's powered. And we take a look. Now, I could talk about some countries, some cities here in the United States, and to name drop without getting into it, we're talking about Seattle and Portland off the top of our heads. But I wanted to concentrate on Heidelberg, Germany, because Heidelberg is not just looking at getting rid of vehicles that burn gasoline or fossil fuels. And while they do embrace EVs, in his perfect world, they'd get rid of them too. Because their argument is that the motor vehicle takes a disproportionate share of resources that makes the city poorer overall. Now, again, in fairness, Heidelberg will be the first, and the mayor would be first to acknowledge that their city is kind of a special example because of their mix of education, their mix of industry, which is light industry and predominantly education and healthcare, that allows them to do things that another city couldn't do.
Yeah.
So he starts with that.
Yeah. European countries on the whole. It's not suburbia like you see here, you know.
Well, also understand, you're looking at cities that have been around for hundreds of years.
So they weren't necessarily designed with cars in mind.
They were never designed with cars in mind. Shoot, when I was in Italy years ago in Milan, cars half the size of a Ford Focus were parked on the sidewalk. There was no place to put them on the public street.
That's probably sick to see. At that point, you're just like, it doesn't belong here.
I mean, oh my goodness. We were driving an Audi A6. It's like driving a full-size limousine. Thing was so big. And that's a mid-sized car in America.
Well, it's interesting.
And it was a huge car in Italy.
You know, along the lines with suburbia, the more I keep reading about that, about how they're in effect a little bit of a Ponzi scheme that can't pay for itself because the amount of money it takes to pave the roads and sidewalks out where nothing else is, they can't make enough money to keep those up, so they have to keep building more houses, and then it just this feedback loop.
Here's the scheme. Here's what they do. Developer comes in, wants a part of land rezoned so he can put in a housing development. City says, fine. Out here, we're going to annex that to become part of our tax rolls, pull you out of the county. But you have to put in the roads, you have to put in the sidewalks, and we'll give you an abatement. That's how they work that.
And then we can't afford the tax abatement.
But no. Here's what happens.
Yeah.
Then it becomes an obligation to the city.
Yeah.
The city's getting, you're getting it and was installed, but now you got to maintain it. And that is where we're getting into trouble. In the case of Heidelberg and the age of the city, they're able to do some things. They actually repurpose an old rail yard with their imagination of the future, which only has, and I forget how many acres it is, but only has like one road that runs diagonal. Only one road. And the rest of the facility is gardens and apartments and designed for bicycles and walkways and all of this stuff. They're big on public transportation. They're big on either bicycling or walking, which is fine as far as it goes. But you're in some situation where you still need a vehicle. So their solution, you get into more of, ride sharing, ride hailing, which is fine. In America, particularly out here, once you get outside the big cities, that doesn't work. It doesn't work.
No.
I don't care.
Any Iowan knows that.
No, what will work over time for us here is an adoption of a more elaborate network of fast charging stations.
Yeah.
Public fast charging stations. The one thing I learned when I did get an EV last year to evaluate, in the middle of the winter, by the way, is just how far we have to go yet.
What vehicle did you get again?
Yeah, I'm not going to mention that because it didn't. And I got back home.
Well, just because of the charging station, though, right? Had other issues too.
Other issues. Yeah. So I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
And it wasn't totally fault of the car.
Yeah.
But it was an explanation that one, in order for me to evaluate that car, they had to trailer it out of Chicago. They couldn't drive it because it was beyond the range.
Yeah.
And we don't have the fast charging stations. And even if we did, I don't think the vehicle's set up to handle a fast charge, which is the other issue. But in Heidelberg, he's talking about even doing away with EVs.
Yeah. No EVs. No vehicles.
In his perfect, the EV is at best a transitional solution for that city.
Yeah.
Again, bicycles, scooters, public transportation.
It's probably not particularly warm there either, but it's still working for that. It's Germany.
But here's the thing. Even in southern Germany, you still get, in this town, a $1,200 bonus if you buy a battery-powered EV, and you get another $1,200 if you install a charging station at your home.
Oh, wow.
That's happening now.
Ours is a $2,700 credit?
I think.
I thought it was $2,700 credit towards it.
Yeah. But now, his argument, let me back up. They also talked about energy usage even in city buildings. Check this out. The city has cut energy consumption of schools and other city buildings by 50% in the last 10 years. No small feat when many of the structures are hundreds of years old.
We could learn some lessons from that.
And no doubt people across Europe, the United States, and other countries have, in fact, reached out to Heidelberg to learn just how. But as I mentioned earlier, he said battery-powered vehicles don't pollute the air, but they take up just as much space as gasoline models. And he really wants to get rid of them in the central part of the city because he complains that they still have rush hour traffic jams, even though only 20% of residents get around by car. The rest walk, bicycle, or take electric buses that ply the narrow, cobbled streets of the city's old quarter. And they haven't figured out to solve the problem of commuters yet, he says. And he talks about electric cars are also expensive. At current prices, they are out of the reach of lower income residents.
Yep, so that'd be absolutely true for us here too.
So, you know what? Ride sharing, ride hailing.
Yeah.
That's how you can do that.
But then if someone's already got their gasoline powered car, they probably won't get, I guess, until they kind of have to get, if it's, broken down or
again, if you're a rural resident, you don't have that many choices.
Yeah.
Even in his model, he says, in cases where you're out in the country, where you don't have public transportation and riding a bike doesn't make sense, you're still going to need a car.
Yeah. That's where reliability sucks. Like talk about low income people, and then if their vehicle's breaking down or you got to take it to the shop, and it's just kind of a, cost that up.
Exactly. If you're low income, what are you buying? Inefficient, older vehicles that don't have all the tech that even the newest vehicles do, that are more fuel efficient. Even as you're looking to phase that out, they're inefficient. But if that's all your money will go, there you are.
What I'll be most interested to see in the future going forward, and it'll probably happen in different pockets depending on where you are in the country, but are we really entrenched in our ways, or will we be able to imagine, different ways of designing cities and transportation?
But that's happening in real time.
You said it is in some areas. We'll just be in small pockets, or will we really, have a transformation across the board?
120 years ago, the horse-drawn carriage was the main. I'm not lying. Was the main way of getting around.
Yeah.
The automobile took the world by storm, and the world hasn't been the same since.
Interstate system.
Yep.
Suburbia.
But we're at that inflection point again, and I think the answer is we are going to change.